Hi everyone, I'm Maggie McGrath, editor of ForbesWomen, here at NASDAQ MarketSite. The global wine industry is estimated at $330 billion, and sitting at the center of it is Neha Kumar. She's a co-founder and COO of Full Glass Wine, and they have some news that they are sharing exclusively with Forbes right now. Neha, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get to the news, just to set the stage for someone who hasn't heard of Full Glass Wine, what is it?
So we're a direct-to-consumer brand acquisition management firm. And so we started this business about a year and a half or so ago, and we ended up acquiring a series of businesses under one roof, all direct-to-consumer wine.
What are the businesses that existed before what you're about to announce?
So we had Winc, which we acquired in June of last year. The second one was Wine Insiders, which we acquired in October of last year. Then after that, we got a company called Splash and Bright Cellars.
And what is the news you're announcing today?
So the news that we're announcing today is we obviously brought on Splash and then also Scout and Cellar, which we're very excited about.
And what is the difference between all of these brands, and how does it create a cohesive company for you?
So the difference between the brands is essentially each one of these has a very specific type of consumer demographic. And so for us, what we wanted to do was put together a series of companies which have something wonderful. Each one of them have something that is great, but they might have needed a little bit of love in some area. And our area of expertise is operations and finance, and putting them in one platform has been really great. But what we're really looking to do is to get through the whole entire customer life cycle. So let's say you come in and you look at some wines and you say, I want to try these out for fun, but I want to maybe learn a little bit more, and maybe I want to try some wines from all over the world. Now, Wine Insiders is the one that you could do, but you want to buy something that's transactional. Maybe a next step is you want to do something that is subscription. So now we have a different type of a product that you can grow into.
Where does Splash and where does Scout and Cellar fit into that wine consumer journey? You just kind of described the beginning stages of that. Are these for the more advanced consumers, those who might have a PhD in wine, so to speak?
We really are looking to fulfill the needs of aspirational wine drinkers. So people who might have a little bit of understanding, but they want to learn more. So Splash is a great example because Splash really is a value-driven wine. So people are looking to buy bulk wine. You're looking at 15 packs and even 18 packs. And then Scout and Cellar is going to be people that are a little bit on the higher end side, and they want someone to tell them what are the right kinds of wines that you should take on.
Now, we've talked before about trends, consumer trends in wine, and also direct-to-consumer trends in wine. And one of the things I had asked you was, of course, all of us were buying wine online during the pandemic. We weren't leaving our houses. But where does the state of direct-to-consumer stand in 2024? And you had something interesting to say, because you said there are a lot of skeptics. There are people who say that direct-to-consumer isn't going anywhere. But where are we now with direct-to-consumer and the wine industry?
Yeah, we'll do direct to consumer first. So a lot of people say that, I have people who've told me e-commerce is dead. Forget even direct to consumer, they say e-commerce is dead. The thing that's interesting is that if you look at a long enough time horizon, e-commerce is trending up and direct to consumer is still trending up, right? But during 2020 and 2021, obviously there was going to be a very large blip, and then things were going to go down from there. A lot of people, when you were looking at the numbers, if you're looking at a forecast, they would take 2020, 2021, and they extrapolated it out. Now, I won't name any necessary companies, but there's a good number of companies that did it in other spaces during that time as well. So it's still going up, but it's just not going to be going up to those levels that you saw during the pandemic.
So the better baseline is that 2017, 18, 19?
Correct, correct.
And what else are you learning about the state of direct-to-consumer as it relates to wine and spirits through Full Glass?
Absolutely. So customer acquisition costs are constantly changing. The algorithms that you're seeing online are really in an interesting kind of state of flux. And then with the election around the corner, it's definitely there. That's one of the reasons we were really excited about Scout and Cellar, because Scout and Cellar also has a direct selling model. And so it hedges our bets a bit when it comes to the customer acquisition costs for selling product online.
And how does this acquisition fit into the broader theme of D2C acquisitions we've seen in 2024? You said to me before we started recording, there's kind of a business trend here overall that's not just concentrated in wine.
Correct. So And I'm going to take it back a little bit. So if you look at the interest rates that were everything that was going on with them in 2020, 2021, they were lower than we've ever seen, right? Everybody knows that. That's no new news. But when interest rates are so low, there's so much money that's fluxed in the economy. When there's so much money that's moving around, everybody has more money to spend. We saw labor rates were going up. We saw the unemployment rate was very, very low, right? So it was, good from that standpoint, but it was one of the things that the Federal Reserve really had to focus in their attention on because we had a global pandemic. So it was a consequence of the global pandemic. Now what we're seeing is over the past year and a half, 2 years, all the money that funds were spending across the board has been cut back. It's for venture and then also for private equity. A lot of that has been cut back. So the job market's been going back to, a little bit different levels from what we saw before the pandemic. And so less and less capital is being spent. So a lot of the companies that are out there now, they're trying to find ways to make ends meet when it comes to cash flowing the business. Now, there's multiple other industries, and I know in, I'd say, the holiday time last year in 2023, we started to see a lot of, and I'm sure you saw them as well, right? A lot of the beauty companies were doing consolidations. So we've already been seeing that, and we're going to continue to see that in other direct-to-consumer industries across categories across the board.
It's interesting too. I think there have been fewer exits this year. PitchBook had a report saying that funding of VC firms is at a near 10-year low because there have been fewer exits, so LPs are holding on to their cash. What does your acquisition right now mean in the context of all of that? What do you think?
So first of all, we're the new benchmark now. So when we're looking at, what direct-to-consumer wine companies should go for, we're the ones kind of setting the stage. So it's interesting. But I think a lot of what we're doing here and how it goes in the context of the greater M&A type of space is it truly is, we're doing what I would consider market arbitrage, right? And so we're taking a lot of various companies across the board where if I would have bought those companies 3 years ago, I would have been buying them at an ultra premium. But I have the ability right now to go out there and get the companies at a relatively good price, put them together under one roof, and then operate them efficiently. And so time will tell, but things have been looking very good for us so far, and we'll see what happens in the next 2 to 3 years.
Now, you are a seasoned business executive who was not necessarily someone who started her career in alcohol. How did you get to this point? Take us through some of the key moments.
It's interesting. I think as long as you put yourself out there and you keep going for whatever gets you excited, and you're really passionate about, it's interesting to kind of see what happens in life. But I teach managerial accounting and I teach entrepreneurial accounting and finance at UCLA. And I was teaching managerial accounting for such a long time. And one of the things with managerial is that you're looking at the operations of products. And I never had worked, I was in banking before or after graduate school. I went to UCLA for undergrad, went to the dark side, went to USC, which is a phenomenal school, and I got my MBA over there. After that, I went to Bank of America. And so, when I was teaching managerial, I really needed to have the expertise in my mind to be able to tell the students of what it looks like when you have a physical product. Through some friends, an opportunity came up at a direct-to-consumer wine company, and I thought this could be very great for me to work here for a period of time. This is about 7-8 years ago. And so I worked there for a couple years, but I really got to learn operations, how 3PLs work, how you're dealing with COGS and shipping. And that for me, it gave me the ability to be able to, practice what I preach type of a deal. So when I'm talking to my students in class, I really understood unit economics and how everything actually worked with a physical product and, logistics delays. So that's how I fell into wine. It's kind of funny how one thing leads to another. And so after that, I ended up going to another company called Create and Cultivate. Some of my family friends were shareholders at the company, and they wanted to get the company to have an exit within the next couple of years. So they brought me on board to scale and get the company sold. So we sold the company in 2021. And so it's been an interesting ride.
It's been an interesting ride because Create and Cultivate does live events, and so 2021 we were still in the thick of the pandemic.
Yeah.
You've joked that it's like the beginning of a horror story. You take a job with a live events company as a global pandemic is shutting everything down.
Yes, I felt like it. I remember when the news was coming out and the borders were closed, I felt like I was in an HBS case, and it was Neha Kumar staring out the window wondering where she went wrong, right? Of course, I joined an events company in a global pandemic where it passes when people are there via, breathing. So it was very interesting. But, the funny part is that our margins actually went up substantially because of the pandemic. So we had started to build out the year before a digital platform, and it was very serendipitous, and sometimes it's just timing in life. And so we started to build out the infrastructure in place. And so when the pandemic actually hit, there was a lot of appetite for digital assets. And so our margins went very, very high. And so it worked out well for us.
And then I'm sure there were learnings. Obviously, wine and live events are different, but also same. You have wine at some live events.
Yes.
But I'm sure there are learnings in building out a digital platform and then what you're doing with Full Glass. Right? You have subscription, you have online community in some cases because people are learning.
Yes.
What's the through line that you see?
I really look at it as running a business operationally efficiently. And that is the biggest thing. How are the employees placed? What is the org chart? What is the purpose of what you're trying to achieve here? How do you make sure that the company can get to a place, if they're not already, to get them to be profitable? Those are the key things that I think people need to focus in on. It truly is running a business, right? One happens to be event, one happens to be wine. Could there be something that's different in the mix? Absolutely. But it kind of comes back to a lot of the things that I teach with my class. It's how do you actually run a business efficiently, properly, and this is the thing that I think a lot of people have forgotten over the years, but really the company needs to make money.
The company needs to make money. That is a good point and brings me to a question about your revenue. So Splash, Scout and Cellar with the existing brands puts you on track for what amount of revenue this year?
125 million.
And are you projecting 2025 numbers yet?
We are, so we'll be sitting at around, projected right now, 185.
And is that including, are you looking at other acquisitions, or are you going to sit tight with 5 main companies within Full Glass Wine?
So we are what I would really consider as opportunist individuals. And so if a good opportunity comes our way, then we would absolutely look at it. But at this point in time, the projections that I gave you right now are with the existing brands that we have and these 2 new companies that we acquired.
The last time we spoke, you said to me that you want to be a one-stop shop for all things wine. How close are you to achieving that vision, would you say?
I'd say we're making a lot of great strides, and we've been around for 14 months. So I think we're in a pretty good spot at this point.
That's pretty fast growth. How are you managing that? Because adding a new brand completely can change things.
It can. The number one biggest thing is to be very clear on what we're trying to achieve. And the number 2 one is to have the good people around you. We couldn't do this without our team.
Now, speaking of your team told me that just 4% of C-suite leaders in wine and spirits are women of color. How often do you think about those statistics? Is it noise, or do you feel it on a day-to-day?
I do feel it on a day-to-day basis, and it gives me a sense of encouragement and empowerment. I have, as you know, I have a daughter. She's 3.5 years old, and I want her to grow into a world where she gets to see her mom do all these great, amazing things, and honestly, that's all she knows then, right? I was pregnant with her when we sold Create and Cultivate. I literally went through diligence while I had her. And now she gets to see me, doing all of these amazing things, and what we do and how we be creates the world around us. And so that's very important to me. But I do see it, and I do feel it on a very regular basis.
Is it changing?
I don't know if it's changing as fast as I would like, especially in this industry. But I think the more that I do, and the more that I step up, and then the more that I take a stand for myself, I do think it makes a very big impact to the generations to come.
Speaking of making an impact on generations to come, you obviously have the UCLA class, and we've spoken about the efforts that you have made to teach women about investing, and specifically this year you've been talking a lot about investing in women in sports. So it's September, we're on the other side of the Olympics. Talk to me about the opportunity that you've seen there and the interest you're seeing from women investing in these areas.
Oh, absolutely. I love this topic, right? So I work over with a group of women called the Women's Abundance Collective. And so we teach accredited women investors how to look at deals, how to do diligence, and really want to encourage them to invest. One of the areas that we're seeing so much growth in is women's sports. Women's sports is a phenomenal asset class on its own and a great place, I think, for a lot of people to really put capital towards. There's so much room for growth. Anytime you're looking at deals, you always want to, it sounds so simple, but you want to buy low, sell high. And I really think that women's sports, even though they're getting a lot of awareness at this point in time, they're highly undervalued. And so as someone making investments, this is a great place to put capital into at this time. When you think about how social media is done, so much of social is women on social. And there is so much room there. If you look at the number of followers a lot of these women's sports players have, people looking at their attire, everything else going on with that. You even just look at Caitlyn with Prada, right? And what was done during the draft picks. These are new things that we've never seen before, and we're going to continue to see a lot of these things. Angel City has done a phenomenal job.
Huge investment we saw earlier this summer. I think it was record-breaking.
Yes.
What's your next step in this? Are you going to continue to teach? Are you going to invest yourself? Or what's the 2025 thesis for the women in sports piece of your career?
Both, right? And so I'm going to continue to invest, I'm going to continue to teach and spread the word, and also just create awareness as much as I can around it, because I think it is a great place for investment and also just a great fun thing for people to be involved in.
And then for the wine side of your career, Full Glass Wines, we talked a little bit about the revenue and your revenue projections, but what else are you looking at in the next 6 to 12 months? What are the strategic priorities you have?
You know, our biggest goal really is to focus on the consumer and to make sure that their process is as seamless as possible during this transition. Ideally, it doesn't even occur to them as if there's a change, right? But for us, it truly is, there's a lot of the customers with, and I'm not sure how much we want to segue into this, but when you're looking at AI, right? So a lot of it has to do with how they're picking their wines and how we start to take their wine preferences and we start to modify it when they're telling us they like this type of a varietal or this didn't work for them. AI has a large part to play in this, and I think for us, over the next 1 to 2 years, it's going to be a very exciting journey, seeing the acceleration of how we can help people choose their wines as they go through this journey.
Interesting. I do want to go into this a little bit because as someone who loves wine and someone who trusts sommeliers, I don't know if I trust AI to give me the best recommendations. So how are you incorporating this? Because obviously it can help streamline the business.
Yep.
It can help you scale Full Glass Wines portfolio brands, but then can AI pass the SOM test?
It's almost, well, first of all, and just to be very clear, I don't know if a lot of our current consumers are utilizing SOMs to purchase wine, right? So that's the first thing. So it's who is your target demographic of what you're going after, right? That's the first part. The second thing is it's almost like saying when you're looking at ice cream, are there not a few core common ice cream flavors? Aren't there ice cream aficionados, right, out there who say, I don't know if anyone's going to know what flavor I like, but there are, right? You have mint chip, you have strawberry, and you have vanilla. And so it's very similar from that standpoint as well.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about wine, and there's a way to make it super specific, but I don't know if it's the UCLA part of you, but you're able to broaden it out, and it almost sounds like any other product.
Every product is unique in its own way, for sure. Having said that, when you are looking at any of these things from a macroeconomic theory standpoint, if you're looking at a large enough sample demographic, you are going to see trends. And that's where data plays such a big role into this. So everyone wants to, we all want to think that our preferences are individualistic, and they are, right? But with algorithms, using like AI algorithms, you have the ability to, at an accelerated rate, come up with better recommendations. And that's where it's phenomenal. And again, I'm very excited for the next about 2 years or so, because the journey that we're going to be able to take our consumers on is going to be absolutely amazing.
Well, I look forward to having you back again in a year or less to tell us more about that journey. But in the meantime, thank you so much for sharing this news with us.
Thank you for having me.
Neha Kumar, thank you for joining us at NASDAQ MarketSite.